Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really compelling idea, something that came from material you shared with us, the subconscious mind. Specifically, viewing it as this kind of connecting link to, well, something much bigger than our everyday thoughts.
Exactly. And what's fascinating, I think, in this source material is how it portrays the subconscious. It's
Mhm.
not just, a dusty attic for old memories.
Right.
It's presented as this really dynamic engine, capable of turning our deepest desires into, well, actual real-world results.
So, our mission today really is to get under the hood of this concept.
Yeah.
We want to explore how the subconscious mind functions, at least according to these sources, and maybe more importantly, how you can intentionally work with it, how you can use it to achieve your goals, what the material often calls attaining riches. And that can mean a lot of things, right? Including, obviously, financial well-being.
Absolutely. And to do that, we'll be looking at several key ideas from the material. Things like the subconscious as this tireless recorder of our thoughts.
Yeah.
The surprising power we actually have to consciously influence it. Its continuous, 24/7 operation,
Always on.
always on. And its connection to this really intriguing notion of infinite intelligence.
Right.
And finally, the absolutely crucial role, and the source really hammers this home, the crucial role our emotions play, especially strong desire and unwavering faith.
Okay, let's dive right in then. The source material starts by painting this picture. You mentioned the recording system. It's like the subconscious is super efficient, always on.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine it just constantly taking notes. Every thought, every sensation that comes through your senses,
Everything.
everything. It's like your brain has this internal secretary, and they never miss a thing.
And crucially, it's not a discerning secretary, is it?
No, not at all.
It doesn't seem to filter out the negative stuff or the silly thoughts or anything. It all just gets filed away.
Exactly. The source really emphasizes this non-selective nature. It's like if it crosses your conscious awareness, boom, it's going to the permanent record.
So the takeaway here isn't just that your mind records everything. It's that, you have this fundamental responsibility. You need to be the gatekeeper for your conscious thoughts. Because whatever you consistently feed it, consciously or unconsciously, your subconscious is apparently going to work relentlessly to manifest that.
Precisely. It really puts the onus on us, doesn't it? To be mindful of what we're actually dwelling on day to day.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. The material strongly suggests we're not just like passive recipients in all this recording.
Right?
We can actually actively plant specific things, plans, thoughts, intentions,
Right.
put them right into our subconscious. It's like we get to choose some key entries for that filing system.
That's the empowering part, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what jumps out. The source highlights that the subconscious is particularly tuned in to our most intense desires,
Okay.
especially when those desires are charged up with strong emotion and, crucially, with that deep-seated belief or faith.
Ah, faith again.
Yeah. That combination, desire plus emotion plus faith, acts like a kind of super fertilizer for the seeds we want to plant in there.
So if you've got a really clear goal, something you genuinely feel, a heartfelt desire, and you can couple that with a solid conviction, that faith that it can happen, you're basically giving your subconscious a very specific, very potent instruction.
Exactly. And this ties right back to what the source material says about defining what you want clearly, writing it down, making concrete plans.
Right.
It's not enough to just vaguely wish for something. You need to give your subconscious a clear blueprint, and then you need to fuel it with that emotion.
Now, you mentioned this tireless recorder doesn't punch a clock, does it?
No, definitely not.
So the material is very clear. 204/7 operation, always on duty.
It is. The subconscious mind, it never sleeps. And this constant activity, according to the material, is linked to this pretty fascinating concept called infinite intelligence.
Infinite intelligence. Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds big. A bit abstract, maybe. How does the source explain that connection?
Well, it describes infinite intelligence as this kind of universal field of potential,
Yeah.
like a boundless reservoir of creative energy that our subconscious can actually tap into.
Okay, so not like a person, but more like energy, potential.
Sort of.
Yes.
Think of it less like a traditional deity, maybe, and more like the fundamental laws of the universe working together.
Right.
A source of, unlimited possibilities.
And our subconscious connects to that.
Yeah, through some mechanism we don't fully grasp, it seems. It can access this intelligence
Right.
to help translate our desires into reality, apparently using the most efficient means available.
So, okay, The specifics of infinite intelligence might remain a bit of a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
But the key idea is that our subconscious is constantly working on our dominant desires, sort of in the background,
Right.
and it's drawing on resources way beyond our conscious grasp.
Precisely. And while we can't, micromanage how it does that, we can consciously choose what plans, what desires, what purposes we hand over to our subconscious for this transformation process.
Hmm.
It's about setting the intention, giving it the blueprint, and then letting it work.
The source even calls the subconscious the connecting link. That phrase again. Between our limited human minds and this infinite intelligence, it acts as an intermediary.
It does. That really emphasizes its role as a bridge, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests our subconscious is the very channel through which we can sort of dial into this broader intelligence whenever we want.
Mhm.
And furthermore, the material suggests it holds this unique, secret process for converting our mental impulses, our thoughts, into what it calls a spiritual equivalent.
A spiritual equivalent. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it's presented as the necessary precursor to physical manifestation.
Yes.
It's like our desires need to be translated, maybe, into this different form of energy first.
Before they can take shape in the real, tangible world.
That seems to be the idea. And it's through this intermediary function, this translation, that the source material then connects the subconscious to the idea of prayer.
Prayer. Okay, how does prayer fit into this whole framework?
The material suggests that the subconscious mind acts as the conduit. It's the pathway through which our heartfelt prayers, the ones really imbued with faith, are transmitted
Transmitted to.
to this infinite intelligence, which is described as being capable of responding.
Mm.
It's as if our deepest beliefs and desires get carried, on the wings of our subconscious.
So our subconscious is almost like the internal communication system. It sends our requests out to, well, to whatever this higher network or universal intelligence is.
That's a compelling way to think about it, yeah.
Hmm.
Now, it's interesting, the source material pauses here for a moment. It acknowledges just how vast this concept is,
Yeah.
maybe even a bit overwhelming. And it mentions the limitations of our current understanding.
Absolutely. You can feel a real sense of awe in the writing when it talks about the stupendous and imponderable potential of the subconscious. The author even says they feel a bit overwhelmed by it sometimes, which kind of highlights how much we still don't know.
And that humility is probably a good reminder, right? While we can learn to actively engage with our subconscious, the full scope of its creative power, well, it's likely beyond our complete grasp right now.
But even with all that mystery, the source brings us back to practical steps, things for you, the listener, to actually do.
Right.
It really hammers home the importance of clearly defining our desires and, crucially, writing them down.
Yeah, that act of getting clear, putting goals into writing, it's seen as this fundamental step. It's how you effectively communicate with your subconscious, like giving it clear, unambiguous instructions.
And it's not just a one-and-done thing, is it?
No, definitely not.
The material strongly emphasizes needing persistence. You have to keep at it to influence the subconscious.
Exactly. It's like planting a garden, right? You can't just toss some seeds down once and expect a harvest without ongoing care.
Good analogy.
Reaching and influencing the subconscious is presented more as a skill, something that develops through consistent practice, through habit,
Mm-hmm.
and especially through cultivating that unwavering faith we keep coming back to. Patience and persistent effort, those are key ingredients here.
Then the source brings up another really critical point. It's about the constant flow of thoughts that our subconscious is getting hit with.
Yeah.
Both the positive ones we might be focusing on and also the negative ones that might just be lurking there, you know?
This is where our mental discipline becomes so important because, as we said, the subconscious doesn't filter. It just absorbs whatever thought impulses reach it,
Regardless of their nature.
regardless. So if we let ourselves get consumed by negative stuff, fear, worry, poverty consciousness, those become the dominant fuel for our subconscious.
And those negative thoughts, they can act as powerful drivers too, can't they?
Oh, absolutely. Just like positive desires. They can potentially lead to outcomes we definitely don't want.
So it's vital. We have to consciously feed our subconscious desirable food, as the source puts it. Positive, constructive thoughts and affirmations.
Precisely. The aim, really, is to gain control over the door to our subconscious. That's the goal.
Okay.
To reach a point where we can effectively filter out those unwanted negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Stop them from taking root and messing up our inner landscape.
Because, I mean, the material states it so clearly. everything humans create, everything that comes into being, it starts as a thought impulse. That initial idea, that mental spark, that's the foundation, the absolute foundation of all manifestation.
Absolutely. And these thought impulses, especially the ones we intend to bring into the physical world, they first have to pass through our imagination.
Right, the imagination.
That's where they take shape, or we visualize them, give them form.
And then comes that essential element again, faith.
Always faith.
The source emphasizes that any plan, any purpose we want to hand over to the subconscious for manifestation,
Hmm?
it needs to be infused, mixed with faith. And this powerful combination, again, it happens within our imagination.
So it's this potent trio, really. A clear, focused thought,
Okay.
vividly shaped by your imagination,
Right.
and then charged up with the unwavering emotion of faith. That's the powerful seed we consciously plant in the fertile ground of our subconscious.
It really sounds like consciously working with our subconscious isn't about just one single trick or technique.
No, not at all.
It's more about harmonizing all these different principles that the source material lays out, kind of orchestrating them.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach. It requires us to be mindful of our thoughts, yes, but also to actively engage our imagination and consistently nurture our belief and conviction. It all works together.
To really drive home the impact of thoughts, the source includes those powerful lines from that Ella Wheeler Wilcox poem.
Oh yeah, those are striking. You never can tell what a thought will do in bringing you hate or love, for thoughts are things, and their airy wings are swifter than carrier doves.
It's such a vivid reminder, isn't it, that our thoughts, they have real, tangible consequences, even if we can't see them immediately. The poem suggests these seemingly fleeting things we call thoughts. They actually operate according to universal laws. They attract similar energies. They shape our reality.
The source explains it by saying these thoughts essentially embed themselves in our subconscious. They act like a kind of magnet pattern or blueprint.
Guiding how the subconscious translates them into physical form.
Right. It just reinforces this core idea again and again.
Hmm.
All material things, at their most fundamental level, they originate as thought energy.
Now, the material goes even deeper into the role of feelings, emotions, how vital they are in this whole process.
Yeah, this is key.
It states pretty clearly that the subconscious is far more responsive to thought impulses that are charged up with emotion compared to just purely logical or intellectual thoughts.
That's a really crucial insight, I think. The source even goes so far as to suggest that only those thoughts that are infused with emotion have a truly significant active impact on the subconscious.
Only emotionalized thoughts. Wow.
Yeah. Emotion is presented as the vital energy, the thing that brings our thoughts to life within that inner realm.
And there's that list, right? The 7 major positive emotions.
Desire, faith, love, enthusiasm, hope.
And the contrasting list of 7 major negative ones: fear, jealousy, hatred, anger.
And what's particularly interesting here is how they seem to work differently. The negative emotions. They seem to have this almost automatic direct line to the subconscious.
Like they just barge right in.
Kinda. Whereas the positive emotions, they seem to require a more conscious, intentional effort. We have to actively inject them, often using techniques like autosuggestion.
Autosuggestion, that's the self-talk, the affirmation.
Exactly, which is covered more elsewhere in the source.
Yeah.
But the point is, it takes deliberate action to get the positive stuff in there powerfully.
So it's like our subconscious has this natural sensitivity to negativity almost.
It seems that way based on this material.
While we need to actively cultivate and purposefully direct the positive emotions towards it, there's that analogy used in the source. Emotions being like yeast in bread.
Well, I like that one.
Yeah, the catalyst, right. It transforms passive ingredients into something active. It's incredibly effective at illustrating the point.
It really is. It highlights how emotions give our thoughts the potency they need to actually influence our subconscious. So therefore, to effectively communicate with this inner audience, we have to speak its language. And its language is emotion, feeling, with a strong, strong emphasis on the positive side of the spectrum.
And the crucial point here, the source says, is that positive and negative emotions, they can't really occupy our minds simultaneously for long.
Right, one tends to dominate.
One will inevitably take over. So the source emphasizes it's our responsibility, yours and mine, to consciously choose, to cultivate the positive ones so they take the lead.
And the law of habit comes into play here big time.
How so?
Well, by consistently choosing and actively engaging with positive emotions, we can essentially train our minds. We make positivity the default setting, and that naturally pushes out the negative influences over time.
But there's a warning too, right?
There is. The source wisely cautions that even a single, intensely negative thought, like a really strong fear or resentment, it can disrupt the constructive work the subconscious is trying to do.
Undermine the positive efforts.
Exactly. It can throw a wrench in the works.
This leads into a really thought-provoking discussion on prayer again. The
Hmm.
source observes that, well, a lot of people only turn to prayer as a last
Yeah,
resort.
when everything else has failed.
Right, and often their minds are just filled with fear, anxiety, doubt.
And the challenge with that, according to this material, is that the subconscious acts on those very emotions. The fear, the doubt.
Mm.
It basically picks those up and amplifies them,
Potentially canceling out the prayer itself.
potentially negating the intended effect, yeah.
Hmm.
The source even suggests that a prayer offered mainly out of fear, well, it might very well be in vain.
Oof, that's quite a statement.
It is. It encourages us, you, the listener, to maybe pause and reflect. Think about times when prayers have felt answered.
Okay.
And consider your mental and emotional state then. Were you coming from a place of faith, of expectation? Or was it mostly fear and uncertainty driving it?
That's a useful reflection.
This then leads into this kind of hopeful vision, a future where maybe the science of prayer could be taught and understood.
Based on knowledge and belief, not fear and superstition.
Exactly. The source draws a parallel to how humanity used to fear lightning.
Right.
And now we understand it, we even harness it through scientific understanding and, a degree of faith in that understanding.
And it introduces this intriguing concept again, this idea of a pervasive energy, something that potentially connects all human brains, and that might even link us directly to that infinite intelligence we talked about earlier.
Yeah, the source basically poses the question. If we can accept the possibility of this kind of interconnectedness, like radio waves or gravity,
Sure.
then why wouldn't we also believe that this same energy could facilitate a direct communication line
Yeah.
between our individual minds and a greater universal intelligence?
It's a logical leap, I suppose.
And it emphasizes that this kind of communication, it requires certain qualities. Things like patience, unwavering faith, persistent effort, genuine understanding, and a truly sincere desire.
Not just going through the motions.
Definitely not.
Hmm.
It makes a very clear distinction against superficial prayer. It says, quite plainly, paid prayers are worthless.
Wow.
The
Okay.
transformative work, it asserts, has to happen through the individual's own subconscious mind. It's an internal process.
And there's that radio analogy again?
Right.
Yeah.
Just like sound needs to be transformed into a specific frequency to travel as radio waves.
Mhm.
Our thoughts, according to this framework, need to undergo a similar transformation through our subconscious. They need to be stepped up maybe to reach this infinite intelligence and then receive a response.
And faith. Let me guess. Faith is the key to that transformation.
Faith is presented, once again, as the crucial element. It's what gives our thoughts this necessary spiritual nature for this kind of communication.
And the final thought in this section is pretty stark, isn't it?
Very direct. Faith and fear simply cannot coexist in this process. You have to choose.
A powerful conclusion. It really brings us back to that central theme. Cultivating positive beliefs, positive emotions, is the absolute foundation for working with our subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm. It all seems to circle back to that.
So, okay, to try and bring this all together from our deep dive into this really fascinating source material, the subconscious mind is depicted as this incredibly potent tool that acts as this vital bridge, this connecting link between our conscious desires and something much bigger, this expansive intelligence.
Exactly. And it responds most powerfully to our dominant thoughts
Ah,
and the emotions that fuel them.
right. And when we intentionally combine those thoughts with genuine, heartfelt desire and that unwavering faith,
That's when we start to unlock its potential. That's how we begin to bring our goals, our aspirations into actual reality.
so understanding this inner audience, our subconscious, and learning to communicate with it consciently, consistently, that's presented as a fundamental, really powerful pathway.
The pathway to achieving whatever you truly seek, really, in all areas of your life.
And with that in mind, maybe here's a final thought for you to mull over. If you could truly learn to consciously cultivate those positive emotions we talked about,
Yeah.
that burning desire, that unshakable faith, and consistently direct them towards your deepest, most heartfelt aspirations, just imagine, what might you ultimately be capable of creating or achieving?
It's a powerful question, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Something to ponder as you continue to explore the incredible potential that, according to this source, resides right there within your own subconscious mind. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.